and welcome to this UCD School of Agriculture and Food Sciences Facebook broadcast for our Agri-Environmental Sciences, Forestry, Horticulture, Landscape and Sportsturf management programmes. My name is Damien Dempsey. I'm the marketing manager here in the school and I'm going to moderate today's discussion. I'm delighted to be joined by my colleague Marie Doyle, who is one of the lecturers on the UCD Forestry degree programme. Welcome, Marie. By Mark Murphy, who is a final year Horticulture, Landscape and Sportsturf management programme, and by Mary Cleary, and Mary's a final year Agri-Environmental Sciences student. So you're all very welcome. Thanks for joining us. Exactly. Marie, we might start with you if you don't mind. I guess you're the unit within the school, or the section within the school which you belong to is home to each of the three programmes. So maybe at the start, I might get you to just give an introduction into each of the three programmes that we're going to discuss, if that's okay.
Sure. Our section is called the Environmental Resource Management section. It's home to three of the Ag Science degree options, as you've mentioned, and they're quite distinct and different. Yeah. But you know, with all of the Ag programmes, they're all science-based programmes and all with an element of business attached. The AES programme would have a significant relationship with agricultural production, sustainability, and kind of balancing agriculture with environmental concerns, climate change issues, and trying ultimately to ensure that agricultural production and food production is done in a climate-friendly and sustainable fashion.
Great, okay. And then we have the horticulture degree as well, yeah?
The horticulture degree is, again, a very varied programme. It's recognised for membership of the Chartered Institute of Horticulture. It has a very long title, but this reflects the breadth of material covered in the programme. So not just about food production or plant-based production for human consumption, but also elements of botany, ornamental plant management, and also sports turf, so golf courses, race courses and that kind of thing. So it's a very varied programme again.
Great. And then we have your own area, which is the forestry degree programme. And again, we might just maybe focus for a little bit more now on the forestry programme. So maybe a sense of the overall structure of the programme and what maybe students might expect to study were to enrol in the forestry programme. Marie.
Okay, well, the forestry programme has been around for a very long time. It's like a lot of our programmes would have changed quite significantly in the last number of years with changing outputs from research, with environmental awareness, with climate change, and again, even with the breadth of jobs and industry and how forestry has developed in Ireland in the last 20 or 30 years, because it's changed quite dramatically. We've gone from stage of only public management, or majority of public management, to now having over 20,000 individual forest owners. And this has greatly expanded the objectives that those owners would have, the types of forests that they want, the type of demands from forests. The societal demands have changed in terms of concern about sustainable timber production.
Yes.
And also the production of non-timber goods and services, carbon sequestration, water quality, landscape, recreation, are all major issues in forestry now. Yeah,
so it's evolved very significantly as a subject and expanded, as you mentioned. And I guess just to give a sense of some of the subjects that students might expect to study, so because I know when we were speaking before the broadcast, there's business, there's maths, there's engineering, there's science, biological sciences, just a sense of some of those modules perhaps that students might undertake on the programme, and maybe projects as well. There's quite a lot of projects.
Well, I think like with all the Ag Science programmes, there is very much a grounding in science at the beginning, and students can find this somewhat challenging initially, that they're coming in and doing a broad range. They're doing all the science subjects, agricultural economics, some basic IT, but it becomes very, very obvious the more the students progress through the programmes, all of the programmes, the relevance of those subjects. In forestry, for example, with all the other subjects, it becomes more subject specific.
Yes.
So as you progress through, you're starting with the fundamentals of forestry, tree structure and function, the principles of forest management, silviculture, harvesting, and then in third year the students undertake a mandatory 16-week professional work experience. This is usually the students' favourite part of the programme. So they're out and about in industry. They can be abroad. They can be here in Ireland with the different forest management companies or some of the producers and processors. And that really gives them an insight to how the breadth of the industry and how it operates in Ireland. And also, I suppose it makes them a little bit more aware of how their academic studies relate to real-world forestry.
Yeah.
When they come back into final year, then the forestry programme is quite different in structure in final year, because the idea is that instead of just lectures and kind of taught modules, that the students undertake, they've a 20 credit project. It's a very big module, but it's about an inventory, so collecting all the timber, non-timber information for a privately owned estate, and then compiling that information and using that to develop a management plan, so a 10-year management plan, using their GIS skills, their dendrology, their management, their economics, and it's a real strength of our programme.
It's something that they enjoy, clearly. And you mentioned so the project and the major project that the students will take at that stage. There's also some field trips and during the course out beyond PWE, so students might have the opportunity to get to a forest environment and maybe to describe that.
That's a key component, I think, of the programme in second year and also in third year, to try and show, when we're talking about different silvicultural systems or different management systems, what it actually looks like in a forest. And again, to see, different site types, different topography, and again, reflecting different owners' objectives. And we talk about, relatively new schemes in Ireland like agroforestry and continuous cover forestry, which offer lots of opportunities in terms of mitigating climate change, even for landowners or farmers in kind of standard agricultural production systems, and to try and develop a closer to nature approach to forestry and forestry production.
Brilliant. And I guess then a lot of these discussions often focus on careers. And you mentioned in terms of the context there, just afforestation levels, there's fairly ambitious growth targets to have greater levels of afforestation in Ireland. You might maybe just comment on that, on what that will ultimately result in terms of the demand for forestry graduates. And then we might look specifically at Forestry Careers Ireland. Well,
I think apart from even just afforestation, there are ongoing ambitious targets to continue, because the level of forest cover in Ireland is extremely low.
Yes.
We're one of the lowest in the EU. They're finding it challenging to meet the afforestation targets. But even beyond that, the output from the existing forests is set to double in the next 10 to 15 years. So even applying good management to those forests will result in fairly significant levels of increased output in terms of timber. So the management of that, the logistics, the harvesting operations that need to go in, and then as a consequence of that, the reforestation operations will be quite significant in coming years. At the moment, despite the expansion in the industry and output and all the rest of it, there's actually a shortage of forestry graduates. This has been something that's, I suppose, as foresters in our relatively small, happy forestry bubble, we've been wondering about for a number of years, why aren't there more people applying to do forestry? So we were kind of chatting about that within the industry. But now we have an industry-wide initiative called Forestry Careers Ireland that has come together to address this. So we have the department, we have forestry in Teagasc, we have Ballyhaise College, we have forestry unit in WIT, we have Quilcha, we have better not leave anyone out. We Beyond, one of the large private companies.
But it's an industry-wide kind of.
It's an industry-wide initiative. It's a very positive approach. We have put together kind of an updated, a very much more coherent and up-to-date reflection of forestry and the opportunities in forestry on the Careers Portal website, which is used by career guidance teachers and students researching career options.
And as you said, in terms of government support, this is the industry, one of the industry initiatives that you launched with Minister of State Andrew Doyle recently to promote greater awareness that, look, at forestry is a very vibrant industry. This is what a career might actually look like, and there's lots of opportunities that would appear to appeal to what prospective students are actually demanding as they begin their careers in terms of an outdoor requirement or component to the role, science and applying science and technology together. So it's a very exciting development, I think.
This initiative, we've got some funding from the promotional budget of the department, and this is a very exciting initiative because this has involved a network of professional foresters, who've just gotten on board. An email was sent out through our professional representative body asking people would they be interested in being involved in a schools ambassador programme. And here the focus is about creating awareness of forestry, because it seems to be really about a lack of awareness or lack of visibility of the sector in terms of career opportunities. So we've produced some interesting print material, and we have a network of schools, and as you said, it was launched in Avondale, which is the home of forestry in Ireland, by Minister Doyle only a few weeks back.
Terrific, and I'm sure we'll come back to some of those points later in the broadcast. We might get you to hand the baton, if you don't mind, over to Mark, who is a final year horticulture student, Mark, and I guess maybe by means of introduction, you might just introduce yourself, how you ended up studying on the horticulture degree here at UCD Ag Food.
Yeah, so I come from a beef and sheep farm at home, and I just didn't really know what to put down in my CAO at the start, and then I was just doing a bit of research about ag science and how I'd like to further this, so I found the horticulture degree and just put it down number one and got in, so it was kind of a...
Haven't looked back?
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. And Monaghan is your home, isn't it? Yeah. So that's great. And I suppose just again, and Marie gave a nice introduction of horticulture and some of what's involved, but maybe some of the subjects, just maybe you might highlight some of what you've studied up to the stage.
Yeah, so in first year it's very, maths, physics, biology, which I was interested in, and chemistry. And then when you move into second year, you're kind of into more soil science, and
you've probably taken some modules around Sportsturf and business as well,
that was
really?
in the third year then. So it was, and then fourth year, or landscaping as well was in third year.
Yeah.
And then into fourth year was more vegetable production and protected crops, things like that. So
so a nice mix of science and some business in there as
definitely.
Well. And Mark, I guess if I were to say from where you're sitting now, when you're nearly at the end of your studies on your undergraduate program, any modules there that you particularly enjoyed or did you like to focus on?
Definitely the Sportsturf, yeah. I really enjoyed it, and I'd like to further a career in it, Definitely enjoyed it. And
when you went to do your professional work experience then, is that an area that you focused in on?
Yeah, I went to the FAI in Abbottstown.
Okay.
Just I was with a company called Clive Richard Limited, CRL. So I just contacted them, and then they got me in contact again with the FAI. So then I was just doing day-to-day cutting, lining, things like that. And then I got the opportunity to go over to the IRFU, the rugby grounds, and grow them in for about 6 weeks. So that was very interesting.
So that's developing the Sportsturf surface and working with colleagues to deliver a Sportsturf surface.
And all about irrigation and everything like that is just very interesting. And then I was back over at the FAI and got to do a full pitch renovation. So that's
terrific.
Putting in drainage, more drainage, and then we grew that in again, so that was I got a good overview of everything.
It must be good when you're sitting with your friends and you're watching these international superstars playing on Sportsturf surface and said, I was the person who was responsible for that. And I guess outside of your studies, UCD is a terrific environment to get involved with extracurricular activities and join maybe societies. Have you been involved in anything there that maybe would be worth highlighting, or maybe would you like to comment on that? Yeah,
I played football there in second and third year. I really enjoyed it. You meet loads of people, and just just meet loads of people.
And the facilities on the campus are...
Oh yeah, there's top class facilities, sports fields and everything. I was actually looking at them then after.
You were probably taking a closer look, than most might. That's terrific. And I guess field trips, again, Marie mentioned on the forestry programme, the students have opportunities to get out and get into the forest. Any field trips there or opportunities?
Yeah, we actually went on a right few this year. We went to Paul Brophy Produce, which he's the biggest broccoli producer in Ireland, which was very good. and then we seen his packing house and everything. And then the next one was the Mead Potato Company. They're a much larger scale. We went out to their fields, seen the potato production, and then back to their pack house, and just everything, all the refrigeration units, everything like that. So, and then we done up reports on them. So
it's something that you enjoyed. And actually, just even when you talk about the title, we often kind of say it's quite a long title for the degree programme: horticulture, landscape and sports turf management. But there's so much packed in there.
Yeah.
And you've mentioned whether it's the food, and of course plant-based diets getting more traction as well for students who are maybe interested in that sphere. Horticulture would align very well with that, but also the sports turfing, the landscaping, the non-food plant production as well. So there really is quite a lot. And then you add in the business modules as well. I guess with your exams coming very quickly down the track, you've got some examinations coming up. Continuous assessment, are they all? Does all your marks go to the final exam, or is it continuous assessment?
It's very good. It really helped me in first and second year. I kind of would have struggled with the chemistry and that, but it really helped me get over the line. And even now we do reports or presentations or anything like that. So it all helps you in the.
Yeah, absolutely, and students tend to welcome that. And I guess finally then, Mark, I suppose just in terms of prospective students, some prospective students probably logging in, wondering about the horticulture programme. Any advice to prospective students who are maybe considering this or maybe considering studying with UCD?
I definitely say go for it. I just took a gamble, and I wasn't sure what to took the gamble, and I have never looked back now. I really love what I'm doing, and love everything about the course. So.
Super. It's great to see your enthusiasm for your subject area. Thank you very much, Mark. We might come back with some of the questions later on, but I might get you to hand the baton over to Mary, if you don't mind. Welcome, Mary. Thanks for joining us. You're from Wexford, and again, you might introduce yourself and maybe just explain where you went to school, how you arrived as a student on the Agri-Environmental Sciences programme here at UCD.
Yeah, so as I said, I'm from Wexford. I went to Loretto Secondary School in Wexford.
Okay.
I'm not too far out of the town, which is, for a farm background, it's quite unusual, but I didn't know what I wanted to do in sixth year, so I was just putting my subjects together, what I liked. My favourite subjects were biology and geography, and with my careers teacher we were kind of looking at environmental science, but as I said, coming from a farming background, I wanted the agricultural side, so the only course I could find with Agri-Environmental Science was in here UCD. So I put it up top, CO, didn't look at the points, just hoped, and it all paid off. So yeah, I was just delighted to get in. And
fast forward 4 years and you're now approaching your final exams at UCD on the course. And again, just in the way that Mark has done and the way also that Marie has mentioned for the forestry course, you might give a kind of a sense of some of the subjects that students would expect to study if they did enrol in the Agri-Environmental Science
so
programme.
it's quite similar to the horticulture and forestry, as in all ag science students go in with basics science subjects in first year, so physics, maths, chemistry, different biologies. And then as second year, you kind of divert into more soil science. You also do diversity in rural landscape, land management as well, just going into environmental policies then in third year.
Of course,
it kind of just goes more deep into your course. So then in the end of second year as well, we had a field trip to the Burren. That was with Helen Sheridan.
And how was that? Just maybe describe that experience for us.
I felt that was one of the best, one main parts I loved in the course, because we got to go out and actually do what we're learning in the lectures to a practical side of it with Helen. So it kind of, what you're learning in class is more relevant when you're outside doing you're looking at different species, identifying plants, and just it brings it more in tune to what you're actually going to be doing when you're finished, kind of.
Yeah.
I also found it brought us closer together as a class, because it's quite small. There's 15 of us, I think, so we all together in the Burren in the middle of nowhere really, but we were all together for 5 days, and it just brought us closer. And as well, it broke down the teacher-student barrier as well, because you come closer as one, really. So. And
again, I suppose the professional work experience is outside of the Burren. Where did you complete your professional work experience?
I completed down at home in Johnstown, Teagasc. Okay. It's the environmental section for Teagasc. I completed it on a farm part. They had a research farm there, beef, dairy to beef, and then I also done it on the environmental side of it in Teagasc, and I was in with different PhD students, and I just got to see everything really, that there's so much potential for this course. You can go do anything really. So
yes, yeah, no, that's great. And I guess outside of the classroom environment, I mean, our dean would be very strong in championing the idea that about 50% of the learning probably happens within the classroom environment, but it's all of these other opportunities that are afforded to you outside of the classroom, through societies, through debating, through the field trips, through the work experiences. Is there anything there in particular that you'd like to comment on outside of the classroom?
Well, the AgSoc Society, that's one of the main societies in UCD, and I feel like the whole year kind of comes together with the different social events. We have the Ag Week coming up now in February, I think, or January when we're back, so that'll be, and it's all fundraising for 2 charities as well. So all the social events, the debate and things, all the money goes towards the 2 charities. I think it's Tech Tom and Crumlin this year, Children's Crumlin Hospital. So it kind of brings everyone together, and
there's a real strong social element, but also a kind of that transition from second level to third level. I know some of the students were chatting about it earlier, and the important role that AgSoc plays there, which is important. I suppose at the stage that you're at now, Mary, and your final examinations are commencing or due to commence very shortly. When you look into the future about the opportunities that are available to you as a soon-to-be graduate of the Agri-Environmental Sciences program, how do you feel? Do you feel optimistic about it, or what's your sense of it?
I have no idea what I want to do, but I'm not one bit worried. I feel like the course is so relevant today with climate change and everything, that I know there's so much to do with this course, and there's so many jobs out there that I'll see what happens.
Okay. But you're excited about the opportunity that is available to you, which is great. And again, there's finally, I suppose, prospective students that are thinking about UCD or thinking about Agri-Environmental Sciences. Any parting advice to the students?
Yeah, as Mark said, go for it. I think all of us, all Ag students will say that we all love the course, everything we do, the societies. It just, UCD kind of brings everyone together, I find. And it's just, there's so much support as well with UCD, as in, I know some students might be worried about the science subjects in first year, but I struggled with maths, and there's a maths support centre, and it just gets you through. I actually ended up doing quite well in the maths subject then as well at the end of it. So
so there's a range of different supports. I think that's a really good point, actually, that in many of the first year programs, students will be exposed to all of the sciences and to mathematics, and sometimes students, when they haven't taken those science courses before, they're apprehensive about them. But the way the modules are delivered, the supports that are available, the fact that continuous assessment is at play, that when students are actually applying and going to these modules, it's not something to be overly concerned about. So that's some great advice. Marie, I'm just looking at the questions here, and I might get you to pass the baton back to Marie, actually. So some of the questions that are coming in from people who are looking at this session in relation to the forestry course, Marie, types of careers opportunities, where do graduates find employment? What types of roles might a forester occupy once they graduate from the course?
Well, as I said earlier, there's a recognised shortage of high quality graduates, so they're quite lucky really at this stage to be coming out and about. The main areas of employment would be, for example, with the department as inspectors, with Teagasc as advisors, or in research. Also with there's quite a lot now of private management companies, and they undertake a whole range of forestry services for their clients. So in terms of inventory or mapping or grant applications or developing management plans, organising sales for harvesting operations, that kind of thing, applications for felling licences. Horticulture is also another employer.
Of course,
so there's a lot of scope directly within forestry, but also, and I think it really applies probably to all our agricultural programs, that graduates, in forestry graduates of all our programs are in high demand. The general employability is very high because it's that strength of a science-based program that has business all the way through it. And then I think the students have a certain grounding or a certain maturity about them because they've all undertaken that period of PWE.
Of course, yeah.
We'd also have forestry graduates, because the use of technology in forestry obviously is, you can't be out in every piece of forest. So the use of information technology would be very strong.
Yes.
So use of geographical information systems, forecasting tools, forecasting growth, looking at wind throw opportunities, this kind of thing. So we'd have graduates that would have ended up in finance, in banking. We've graduates working with Google. We've graduates in journalism, in teaching.
In a whole range of sectors beyond forestry, yeah. And I guess in a similar way to horticulture, you startups, you probably have graduates who've gone off and developed their own business in many cases as well. It's one of those programs that lends itself very well to that, I think. So that's great. Another question here, maybe Mark, might be just in terms of the support services available to students. So Mary mentioned that transition from second level to third level, some of the subjects. Are there supports available to students to support them during their time here at UCD? Would you comment on that one?
Yeah. There's the math support centre, as Mary mentioned earlier, and then we would have got in on DARE, the scheme. So there's they're very good. There's the up above the library, so they give our own exam centres and things like that, just to help us, get through the exams and things like that. So.
Yeah, which is part of the Access and Lifelong Learning Centre, isn't it? And there's a tremendous range of sports there for students if they require some additional support in particular areas. So that's certainly a support service that students. And then you've got dedicated student advisors, I guess, dedicated programme office, there are academic staff. And I think, again, for all of the programmes that we're considering for this broadcast, the fact that there's a small class sizes, you've got very good access to your academic leaders and academic coordinators. So I think that's some of the questions I think that we've taken in. If you have additional questions, please contact us on any of our social media channels at UCD Ag Food, and we'll be delighted to respond to those after the broadcast and following the broadcast. I'm going to thank each of our panellists for their contributions. There was some great discussion there and a great insight into each of the three programmes that we're considering for this session. To remind people who are viewing the broadcast, our next event is our CEO, the University CEO and Mature Student Information Evening. That's scheduled to take place on the 7th of January in the John Hume Institute, and it runs from 5 to 7 p.m. So students can log on to ucd.ie/myucd to register to attend that event. We also have a QQI FET event for science, computer science and agricultural food science and human nutrition, which will also include the programmes that we're speaking about here as part of this discussion. That's taking place on the 14th of January in the UCD O'Brien Centre for Science. It runs from 10 a.m. to 12 o'clock. And again, you can register at myucd.ie for that event. So I hope that's of help. If you'd like to speak with some students through the UniBuddy service, if you go onto MyUCD, we'll have some students signed up to the UniBuddy service that will, through the messaging service, respond to any questions that you have. And of course, as I mentioned, you can also contact us on any of our social media channels. Our handles are at UCD Ag Food. So thanks again to everyone for participating in the session. Thank you for joining the session. I hope you enjoyed it and you found it helpful. For the sixth year students among you, very best wishes with your upcoming examinations and indeed with your course choices. Thank you.